sometimes you wonder, like, are other people looking at the same thing as like I am? Like how like sometimes in arguments I'm like, I shouldn't be defending like veganism. I should, like, why am I trying to convince you that we shouldn't be killing animals? That should be just the default. And the fact that people just resist so much to that idea, it's very depressing. But to answer your question, the reason that I still have hope is because I know that this is not the first time that society is behaving this way. When you look at, like, 200 years ago in the US, I would have been having the same conversation with someone about slavery. Like, you realize these are like real people, like they feel pain and suffering just like us, and someone would have said, no, we've been doing that for a long time, like they don't feel pain, that's okay, that's good for economy, or whatever they told themselves to justify it, right? I know that this is not the first time that the society has gotten something completely backwards. This is not the first time that we are going to regret what we are doing. Mm-hmm. And every time that the society changed, it wasn't because everyone was on board. So when people tell me, are you going to speak to everyone and try to make every single person go vegan?
Welcome to the Better Life for Animals podcast, where we amplify the voices of animal advocates, sanctuaries, and changemakers working toward a kinder, more compassionate world. Through powerful stories and expert insights, we shine a light on the efforts to rescue, protect, and advocate for animals. Be sure to subscribe wherever you're watching or listening. Every follower helps us reach more people. And support animal sanctuaries. Enjoy the conversation.
It's my pleasure to welcome Dr. Faraz Harsini to our podcast. Dr. Harsini is a biomedical scientist and the CEO and founder of Allied Scholars for Animal Protection, ASAP, a nonprofit that supports students who are interested in advocating for animal and environmental protection, public health, and pursuing careers that can make the most difference. With ASAP, he is leading the effort to build a comprehensive and sustainable infrastructure for animal advocacy in universities. He is also the senior scientist at Good Food Institute, where he works on advancing scientific and technological methods to produce sustainable and cruelty-free proteins on a large scale. Dr. Harsini's educational background includes a bachelor's degree in chemical engineering with a focus on process design and nanobiotechnology. He also has a master's degree in biotechnology and cancer research, as well as a PhD in cell physiology and molecular biophysics. He has extensive experience in discovering and developing therapeutic proteins for diseases such as COVID-19, influenza, cancer, and inflammatory diseases in the biopharmaceutical industry as a protein expression and process development scientist. Today, he leverages his experiences to scale up alternative proteins. Dr. Harsini collaborates with organizations like Physicians Committee to promote advanced and human-relevant alternatives to animal testing that are better for humans and animals. Additionally, he leverages his personal experiences as an immigrant, first-generation college student, and LGBT community member to raise awareness about the interconnectedness of human and animal oppression. Dr. Harsini believes that the root cause of many global issues affecting humans and animals is linked to the food system. Therefore, he aims to change the food system and support students to become future leaders in animal protection through ASAP. Dr. Harsini, welcome to the show. Such an honor to have you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Very excited to talk to you. We don't get many guests on our show that are scientists that can talk about cell-based advances, so I will definitely be looking forward to that part. But to get us started, maybe we could just go what inspired your deep compassion for animals and how that has shaped your journey as a scientist and advocate.
Great question. I don't think there is anything special about me. I think just like many other people, I always cared about animals. It's just the conditioning and sort of cognitive dissonance that puts distance between us and what happens to animals. Um, and when I was back in Iran, I remember I dedicated my bachelor's thesis, which had nothing to do with animal testing at all. But the dedication part of the thesis was to animals that were sacrificed for science. At the time, I wasn't vegan or vegetarian. I just thought that this is necessary, but still felt so bad that I dedicated my bachelor to them, saying, I hope that your sacrifice was worth the scientific discoveries. So I felt really bad about it. I just thought that it had to be done. I was against hunting and trophy hunting, and even did activism trying to stop a tradition back in Iran, which is basically buying goldfish for Persian New Year. I was trying to stop people from doing that because millions of fish just die throughout the process. And when I look back, I don't understand how I just didn't make the connection about animals I was eating and animals I was using in other ways, like leather, fur, things like that. So when finally one of my friends pointed out my hypocrisy and said, I actually asked her to help me to save animals, and she refused. And she said, you literally eat animals. Like, what are you doing? And so that was like a ouch moment. And I was uncomfortable. I didn't like my friend for 3 months. And then I realized that she has a point. And when I made the connection, I started looking into it, and it just made sense. I think that was just the most rational and ethical choice to make. And I just can't believe I didn't do it sooner. I think if somebody showed me the truth and had a conversation with me sooner, I would have changed a lot faster. And I think that I'm not alone in thinking that way. I think just eating animal products and doing horrible things to them is so easy just because it doesn't happen in front of us, and we are not the ones who are doing it. It's really easy to support, let's say, animal testing when you are not the one who's torturing the animal. Right. And if someone was taking away your animal, then you would never give your cats and dogs to me to burn their eyes and skin and literally torture them, or you would never be okay if I took your dog and ate them, even if it was a good source of protein and B12, just because I think deep inside, most of us do care about animals. And most people have empathy. I think there's 1% of population that's clinically psychopathic in terms of not having actual sympathy, which is a thing. But I think the other 99% of people do have empathy and sympathy. And the reason that we just do horrible things to animals is just because years of conditioning and brainwashing and really just a cognitive dissonance. So
I like how you talk about you were made uncomfortable, because there's always this debate going on. Do we do it, softly with, an invitation to all that is possible in the world of compassion? Or, I think I heard you say that actually being uncomfortable has its benefits, because we're just not getting people are not waking up, it does not seem, at the level and the speed of which we need. I'm very interested in knowing, because you've been a scientist, so the intersection, because you work with scientists, and do you see, is there an intersection between compassion for animals and the scientific innovations in your work? I've heard that, most of these tests don't even truly relate to humans to begin with. So I just wonder, is there a movement to move away from that? What do you think?
I don't know if there is a movement necessarily. The only relevant question for me is as long as animals are being tortured and as long as the system is broken, we have work to do, whether there is a movement or not. And if there is not a movement, then we should make one.
Okay.
I think that for sure, every single day there is new developments. The good thing about alternatives to animal testing is that they always and continuously and forever will keep getting better, whereas animal testing, it's capped out. I mean, you can make animal models a little better, but you can never make them perfect. You can never get rid of a problem we call so every time you basically take the results from animal testing and you take them to humans, you're crossing that species barrier, and that's a problem you can never get over. Yeah, every single day there are new methods. Computer models are getting so much better. I get back to this in a second. And then you see, like in current administration in the U.S. at least, the government is trying to get rid of a lot of money wasted on animal testing, the completely pointless animal testing. This is not a comment on politics, but it's like it shows that there are some things are happening, and I think lots of organizations are putting pressure on the government, working within the policy, and so some good things are happening, but obviously there is a lot of work to do. But in terms of the computer models, I say this: in order to understand protein structures and functions, you can't really look at proteins under microscope. They're very tiny and they are very flexible. So you need really high-end biophysical methods to look at them. And the two common ones they sound very complicated, and they are very complicated. They're called X-ray crystallography and NMR, nuclear magnetic resonance. And these are the methods that so far we used in order to look at protein molecules. And why do you look at protein structures? Because if you really want to design a new drug and understand how different biomolecules interact, then you have to know their structure. And these two methods that I said, they're extremely expensive. So most of the time they don't work, and sometimes they don't even reflect the reality. But so far, they were the best thing we had. But nowadays, by the time I finished my PhD and just a few years later, computer models and AI just took off so quickly that in a course of like a year, now you can look at pretty much any protein structure just using computer models, and they're pretty accurate, sometimes even more accurate than structures we got from other methods. And it's just crazy. So today we have these tools that did not exist like 10, 20 years ago, even 5 years ago. So, but unfortunately, the animal testing still relies on methods developed, hundreds of years ago, when we just didn't have any of these newer models.
As a cultivated meat bioprocessing scientist, why do you believe that cell-based meat should be the main focus over smaller reforms in the animal movement?
I don't think it has to be the main focus, but I think it's one of the top priorities. And it's not just cultivated meat, it's also plant-based food and precision fermentation, which is basically producing things that are like eggs and dairy, but without animals. So using like fungi or, like yeast or bacteria, things like that. So when you think about alternative proteins, the only thing that I know for sure is that we need alternative proteins. We need alternatives to animal farming and a food system that relies on animal farming. And I specifically say animal farming, not animal agriculture, because animal agriculture or factory farming is not really just a problem. It's really just the food system that relies on animal farming, even if it's small scale, even if you try to make it sustainable, which is not possible. No matter what, any amount of animal farming will increase the risk of chronic diseases and zoonotic diseases and pandemics. So there is no good solution there. So your alternatives are either plant-based foods or cultivated meat for the most part. And I think nobody knows which one is going to be the answer. And potentially it's going to be a combination of both. And plant-based foods should get better and cheaper and tastier and healthier. And cultivated meat also has to have a chance to prove itself. So all I know is that we need probably both. Cultivated meat would be good for people who unfortunately would not stop eating meat or would not give it an open mind to try plant-based foods. So that gives them an option. And I think for a place like McDonald's or KFC or, these big chains, they don't really care about anything. They just want to make sure that people eat something that they like the taste. So if cultivated meat can be that, then let it be. So the way I look at it is like, just like fossil fuels. No one really knows when exactly we run out. It could be 20 years from now, 50 years from now. We have estimates. But we don't know exactly when it's going to happen. One thing we know for sure is that it's limited, right? So we're going to run out eventually. Even if we find one or two reservoirs now and there, we're going to run out. So what are the alternatives? Is it solar? Is it wind? Is it nuclear? I don't know. Maybe a combination of all, right? We don't know how the energy sector is going to move on to alternatives in the next 20 years. But one thing for sure is that more cars are becoming electric and et cetera, right? So that's how I look at the food system. No one really knows which exactly could be the solution. Maybe we need another solution. But the only thing that we know is that what we have right now doesn't work and we need to change it or we're going to ruin the planet.
Speaking of people who might be reluctant to give up their meat, what do you think are some of the misconceptions that group of people or anyone have about cell-based meat, why they're not more open to the idea?
I think one of them could be maybe some people call it like lab-grown meat, and their idea of that is like someone with a petri dish with like some like burger in it, and it just doesn't look appetizing. And that's why we don't call it lab-grown meat. We just call it cultivated meat or cell-cultivated meat. And it's really just going to be produced in places just like breweries. And the good thing about them is like they're going to have these glass walls where you can actually see the process, just like a brewery when you go, hopefully people don't drink beer, but maybe it's 0% alcohol. But then you go to these breweries and you see all these, cultivators or, fermenters or whatever in the back, and people are chatting as this beer is being produced, right? So this is going to be the future of cultivated meat. And I think that transparency probably can help a lot of people to get over their fears. But I also think that just like anything that's new, there's always resistance to things that are new. A very good example of that is nowadays, most people don't throw up on planes, but that used to be not the case. A lot of people, just the idea of flying was new, and that's why a lot of people like used to just throw up a lot. But now we're just so used to flying, we don't even think about it. So I think it's one of those things that just like any other technology, when phones came, when every technology, every new thing that gets introduced, it really, it takes time for market adaptation. So that's to be expected. I don't know, maybe some people think it's not normal or natural, but neither is animals that are genetically manipulated, neither is anything about animal farming.
No.
And cultivated meat is supposed to be as normal as it gets. It's real animal cells grown in just outside of the animal, so without all the bad stuff.
Without all the bad stuff and all the cruelty.
Exactly.
You're listening to Better Life for Animals podcast. Our mission is to amplify the voices of animal advocates, sanctuaries, and changemakers working toward a kinder, more compassionate world. But we can't do it alone. We need your help. First of all, go ahead and subscribe to this channel wherever you're watching or listening. And then get involved by visiting betterlifeforanimals.com. That's betterlifeforanimals.com. Be sure to check out our blog, learn more about incredible sanctuaries, and explore our book section, where 100% of net proceeds from book sales are donated to sanctuaries. Every action you take helps to make a difference. And remember, subscribe to this channel. And now, back to the show.
If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Dr. Faraz Harsini, and this is Better Life for Animals. Dr. Harsini, Why do you believe that empowering young people is the key to achieving lasting change for animals?
I think that this world is really in trouble right now. There is so much wrong with it, and the magnitude of the suffering and damage that we are causing to animals, to humans, to the environment is just beyond comprehension. On the surface, when you look at it, it's very depressing. But really, what gives me hope is that this is not the first time that the society has gotten something completely backwards. When you connect with animals and when you see them as sentient beings and when you respect every animal just like your cats and dogs, and I want to say something in parentheses here, that really just what we are advocating, like animal rights or veganism, doesn't mean that we are advocating for cows to vote. It's just to really appreciate that they are capable of feeling pleasure and suffering just like cats and dogs. And if it's wrong to harm them needlessly and exploit them, then it should be also wrong to exploit animals of other species. So when you understand that, and then you look at the magnitude of how many, and we kill like over 3 trillion animals every single year. It's just like a one with a bunch of zeros in front of it. It just stops making sense. That's how bad it is. And it kills me that most people go about their lives without ever like thinking about this, without questioning this at all. And sometimes you wonder, like, are other people looking at the same thing as like I am? Like how like sometimes in arguments I'm like, I shouldn't be defending like veganism. I should, like, why am I trying to convince you that we shouldn't be killing animals? That should be just the default. And the fact that people just resist so much to that idea, it's very depressing. But to answer your question, the reason that I still have hope is because I know that this is not the first time that society is behaving this way. When you look at, like, 200 years ago in the US, I would have been having the same conversation with someone about slavery. Like, you realize these are like real people, like they feel pain and suffering just like us. And someone would have said, no, we've been doing that for a long time. Like they don't feel pain. That's okay. That's good for economy, or whatever they told themselves to justify it, right? I know that this is not the first time that the society has gotten something completely backwards. This is not the first time that we are going to regret what we are doing. And every time that the society changed, it wasn't because everyone was on board. So when people tell me, are you going to speak to everyone and try to make every single person go vegan? It's like, yes, I will try to as many people as I can. But the goal is not to really, we don't need everyone to go vegan in order to see changes. We just need a minority of people who are outspoken and go out of their way to speak up. Just think about every single one of us. Could be somebody like MLK, could be somebody like Rosa Parks. We didn't need to convince the entire population that slavery was bad in order to make progress. It started from like a small group of people who were outspoken. They resisted, they didn't give up their seat. And there was a leader and all that. And then the rest is history, right? You look at women's rights and you look at something like LGBT rights is also interesting because at the time it wasn't even like culturally acceptable at all. Like, I think like maybe many people even ethically were against it, and it still happened, like at least the gay marriage that became legalized. And that's just because a few people started sharing their stories and people resonated with these people, and they were like, and things changed. So the reason I have hope, especially for the next generation and young generation, is because I think that they are going to be the future doctors and lawyers and policymakers. What annoys me is that most of them go through college and medical school and law school without ever being exposed to any of these things that we are talking about today, whether it's just animal welfare, animal protection, the animal exploitation, whether it's the connection with climate, whether it's connection with chronic diseases. Medical students go through 4 years of medical school without ever learning about preventive medicine and the role of diet and plant-based diet in preventing these diseases. And so there is a huge missed opportunity there, but at the same time, I have a lot of hope that focusing on the new generation can really help changing the course of the vegan movement.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about ASAP and how it supports and mentors student organizations to become more effective. What do you think? I love this program that you've created. Tell us all about it.
Yeah, thanks. I like it too. I'm a little biased, but no, seriously, I'm not doing this because I'm not advocating for it because I'm doing it. I'm doing it because I realize it's one of the biggest things that the movement is missing. And so think about it. Every single person who's vegan or vegetarian or cares about animals or in one way or another became interested in this, in animal rights or veganism by chance. If my friend didn't have that talk with me, who knows, maybe I was eating animals even today. I look at almost every major animal rights vegan influencer and whether they're CEOs of companies, whether they're philanthropists and fund the movement, no matter what, policymakers, they all became vegan by accident. And a good example of that is actually Peter Singer, who wrote the Animal Liberation that made Ingrid Newkirk of PETA inspired. And so just think about how many people became vegan and learned about animal cruelty from PETA. And all of it goes back not to actually Peter Singer, but to a lunch that he had with a fellow student at Oxford, where the guy just refused to have meat. And Peter Singer said, how so? And they had that conversation. And, that led to animal liberation, and the rest is history. But my point is, what if that conversation didn't happen? And how many more of those conversations are we missing? How many of these people who are walking around campuses could be the next Peter Singer and the next CEO of a cultivated meat company and the next person who does something, discovers something about alternatives to animal testing, and the next policymaker that changes policies, and the next doctors that promote plant-based diet, right? And that's really the opportunity that we are missing. And if we don't invest in it, we're gonna be in trouble. And I'm gonna be real with you, most of the biggest funders of the movement, most of the biggest doctors, plant-based physicians, and policymakers, they're a lot older than college students. They're in their 50s, 60s, 70s. So I'm looking at the next 20 years. If we don't really invest on the next generation, then we're going to be in serious trouble. And no one is doing it. I can't believe that no one is doing this. So I made it my goal that we can't really rely on accidental exposures, like these conversations that some roommate talks to you about veganism, somebody gives you a book, you randomly come across a YouTube video. We can't rely on randomness. We can't rely on accidental exposures. It has to be intentional. So that's what I'm trying to do. So we start ASAP chapters in universities. We make sure every single college student, even if it's 50, 60 thousands of them, they're always exposed to different ideas of veganism and plant-based diet. So they're always constantly exposed to it. And the best thing is, because our resources are limited, we don't have a lot of money, it's not a lot of us. If you can actually focus that in college campuses, it's that's how you maximize your output and impact, because you have thousands of next generation of leaders in literally 2 blocks in one campus. And so it's really easy to saturate it, to make sure that today you teach them about diet and climate. Next time, benefits of plant-based diet. Next time, you expose them to cruelties in slaughterhouses, day after day after day. And it's probably one of the best things that we can focus on as a movement. And that's why I started ASAP.
I love it. How many campuses are you on right now?
We are in about 22 universities, including
Excellent.
most of Ivy League and a lot of major universities. I mean, one of them is, for instance, Texas A&M, and another one is Ohio State Universities. Ohio State University and Texas A&M, these are top two largest universities in the US. 2 out of 3, right? So the largest ones. So 60, 70,000 students. And before ASAP, 60, 70,000 students went through college without ever, in 4 years, never learning about animals. And we completely changed that. And my favorite thing was someone posted on Reddit. He said, I'm not vegan and I don't want to really offend everyone. I'm just curious. I've been at Ohio State University for 5 years, but in the past year, there are so many vegans everywhere. There are not so many vegans. There are just a few vegans who are now supported. So they're doing activism, but that's a level of exposure. Like people are noticing it, and that's really what I want.
Yeah, like you said, we all have to be loud and we have to make a difference because we don't want it just to be an accident that you learned about compassion. One of the things that we like to focus on this show are sanctuaries, and I'm wondering if perhaps part of your students' process is to perhaps work at sanctuaries or to help out or volunteer. Do you have any feedback on that?
I mean, as one of the events that some of our chapters do, they go and visit a sanctuary, and my goal always has been that ASAP chapters should be promoting veganism, but the members, I hope that there are so many members who are not vegan, vegetarians, any hunters, I don't care, like anyone who wants to take a step. And then for ASAP chapter leads to take them to a sanctuary and really just help them make the connection. I think that's one of the greatest events that they can do. So yeah, I think sanctuaries are a good place to show people and let them interact with these individuals and see them that they can be they're just as sentient and worthy of our attention as other animals. So like I said at the beginning, I think exploiting them is really easy just because you don't interact with cows.
Right.
And the more you're exposed to them, the more they are on your mind. So absolutely. So
how do you find your greatest source of funds? Because I'm sure you want to grow. It's such a great cause. How do people participate in this? How do they find out about it? And what are your campaign goals?
Yeah, so we work with a lot of other organizations and a lot of other. I know that a lot of people learn about us because we work with other social media folks who are really good activists. And when we have them on campus, they make videos. And I think that's one way a lot of people learn about us, and podcasts. Students sometimes learn about us when they look up, a vegan group at Harvard. Oh, there is ASAP. And so that's how they join or contact us. Regarding funding, it is a real challenge, especially this year because things are a little messy in terms of market insecurity and investment. And so it's been a difficult year. But really, like you mentioned, I think there are generally a certain number of major funders who fund most things. But really, for us to grow, we really need to have individuals who can support us, just like PETA, right? So PETA is the greatest, or I guess the largest animal rights organization, and most of their money by far comes from just individuals who contribute, and sometimes it's like $1, sometimes it's like 5, 10, doesn't matter. So I think that's really what I hope to happen for people who can see the value of what we are doing in terms of like really changing the outcome of the animal rights movement, to help us, even if that means, like I always say, if you buy me a cup of coffee to keep what I'm doing, just donate that to ASAP on a monthly basis, like literally a cup of coffee. But that just adds up. If every follower, sometimes I do these calculations, I'm like, each follower who just messages me or something, if they spend like 50 cents sometimes, like that allows me to add a new person to my team and take over another 20 universities. And the good thing about this model is it's very cost effective, it's scalable, and it starts a snowball effect. Because when someone at that young age goes vegan, and I have plenty examples of this, and these people start working on cultivated meat, alternatives to animal testing as their careers, just imagine how many other people they influence. So that snowball effect is what I'm after, not just like, okay, you became vegan and that's it. No.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that would be a huge help generally for us, for ordinary people who are not necessarily funders or donors, to actually support us with what they can.
There's a lot of power in the ordinary person.
Yeah,
so tell us
absolutely.
how we can find you and so that we can help you.
Through our website probably would be the best. It's alliedscholars.org, really easy.
Okay.
There's a contact form. So if anyone wants to reach out to me, if they have questions, if they want to go vegan and they need help, I'm here to help. But they can also donate all of it through our website. If you're a student listening to this, you want to start a chapter, also alliedscholars.org. You can find the same thing, Allied Scholars, on Instagram at Allied Scholars. My Instagram is also at Dr. Faraz Harsini. And if you have questions or anything I can help with, you can message me on Instagram. I generally check my messages, so that's a good way to contact me directly as well.
I love your generosity and approachability because I know you're a busy man. That's awesome.
I can't say no. Like when there is someone who needs help, and I know that something that I say could really change the outcome of like trajectory of this person's life, I just can't say no.
Anything for the animals. In closing, if you could give one message to young people passionate about animal protection, what would it be?
My message would be, oh God, I'm really bad with short things, but generally pursue satisfaction and not happiness, because sometimes life is miserable and it's okay. MLK and Gandhi had miserable days, but they were satisfied because they pursued something a lot bigger than themselves. And I think today the biggest and best cause to dedicate your life and every second and every minute is animal rights, because statistically, logically, rationally, mathematically, ethically, however you look at it, it's the biggest moral issue of our time. There's nothing better that you can do with your life, nothing more urgent. And no matter what you do, whether you're an artist, whether you're a physician, no matter what your interests are, you can find your own angle to help the movement. I don't care how you do it. The only thing that I care about is like we should use everything in our power, our voice, our money, our time, our career, and every single moment is precious. Every conversation is precious. You never know how this simple conversation, this simple story you shared on Instagram could change someone else's life forever. And we owe it to animals. I say one other thing also. I'm introvert. The last thing I want to do is to like talk to people about veganism. That's really just the last thing. And ironically, that's the only thing I do. But I would say that the reason I force myself to do this sort of things is because I'm like, what if that little conversation I could have with this person would have been the difference between this person being vegan and not being vegan? What if this person, the next Peter Singer, and this is that conversation about like that guy not having meat, right? You never know. And you do enough of it and you see the results. It's impossible not to see it. And the last thing I say is like a lot of times things change because one individual took control of things. I have students who start a fully vegan dining hall or plant-based dining hall in their universities, and it didn't take 200 students. It was like one or two who just didn't give up, and they kept getting at it until like they succeeded. So you don't need big teams. All you need is just to care about this and give it your best. And that's really all that matters.
Well, from one introvert to another, Dr. Harsini, I hear you. Words to live by. Thank you so much for being on our show. And for those of you who have enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe, as it helps us create a better life for animals.
Thank you for joining us on the Better Life for Animals podcast. Together, we can create a world where all beings are treated with dignity, respect, and care. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. It helps us reach more people and spread awareness about the incredible work happening in animal sanctuaries. You can also share this episode with friends and fellow advocates to keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep speaking up, taking action, and making a difference for the animals.